So here's the big question. How should we use technology to teach? And where do we find the answer to that question? And now I come to one of my favorite quotes. The last person to discover water is obviously, as Marshall McLuhan said, I don't know who discovered water, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a fish. Okay, and this is quite profound. Because if you've got two little fish and they're swimming around in this fish bowl and the one says to the other, hey, you know, we're in water. He's like, where? No, we're in it. It's like, where? He's looking around. No, it's all over. I'm telling you, I'm serious. He said, how do you know? No, I just know. And we're like, no, I don't think we're in water. You've only ever lived in water. You can't see the thing. You might see its impact and its effect. Until when does the fish know that he lives in water? Yeah, when he jumps out, he's like, oh, that was water. I love water. And it wants to get back in again. And we often cannot see the paradigms that we're stuck in until we remove from them. And that's true with everything in life. We can't see perspective until we get out of it. And it's quite a problem. So when it comes to technology and how we use it for learning, we are so stuck. I have sat in front of lecture theatres like this for like 30 years. How do I think differently? Very, very difficult. I tried. I was teaching the use of technology. I still couldn't get it right. Until I realized, didn't matter how many years I was swimming around in this water, I would not be able to change my paradigm. I wouldn't be able to have another perspective. I needed a new guide because all of that is not working. Me turning to parents, to the media, to vendors, they've all got other agendas and really, do they really know? I needed a new guide. Well, who do I need to turn to? Interestingly, I need to turn to the people that are actually using the technology in their everyday life. And this is where I turn to the F word. This is the bad word in education. And so for years, I'd been studying my students, trying to understand how do you learn. And we're in this environment, and in fact, those who come into the practical session will actually look at it, Edmodo. And they said, man, I love this Edmodo. It's so great. It's just like Facebook. I'm going, man, they like this environment. It's just like Facebook. And they kept saying this over and over and over again. And I thought I should study Edmodo. No, I shouldn't study Edmodo. I needed to study Facebook. And so my PhD, learning in a Facebook environment, the writing is on the wall. When over 1 billion people are using an environment, we need to understand what's going on there. Because it's telling us something, whether you like it or not. And in my mind, I was like, no, how can the Facebook, be linked with teaching? Because they are different things. Facebook's for games and for stupid things and for socializing. That's that, and this is teaching. They should never meet. You like wash out your mouth if you say Facebook and learning in the same. That's disgusting. And it was quite challenging. How do you actually do that? Can you actually learn in Facebook? Won't they go crazy? They'll just go mad. Who knows what they will do? And so about 4 years ago, I took the plunge and ran a course in here and studied to see how people learn in this environment. And that was the only way I could actually get out of my comfort zone. And I can tell you, with all these problems, I was writing my private blog. This is so traumatic. I think you might have even been in that class back then. And it was traumatic because I wanted to do all sorts of things, and I purposefully held back because I was trying to understand what the water really looked like from the outside. And so it was an absolutely fascinating journey, and that's what I want to start to share with you now. So, how do we move beyond the copy-paste paradigm? We need to have a new paradigm. We need to see things differently. And that's really what I'm trying to communicate to you today, some of those simple principles. Now, I love this. This was a cartoony type thing in a newspaper, and it was entitled Future School, France, 1901. Okay, so over 100 years ago, a cartoonist drew this. This is what school was going to look like in the year 2000. That's what school would look like. What's happening in that picture? Can you see? Okay, essentially what's happening, there's the schoolmaster, and he's taking books, and he's sticking them into this big machine, and some poor little kid, I don't know, he was probably the naughty one, he's grinding the books, and it's going up the cables, it goes beep, 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 straight into their heads. Man, this is just awesome. I can see why that's the vision. I mean, wouldn't we love that? Now we'd be a little bit more techy. We'd download the book onto here, we'd just press button, beam it to your heads. Thank you, and then we'd leave. And we still have this vision often in these future movies. But there's something fundamentally wrong with this, as we're going to see now. This is the ultimate copy-paste. I copy this and paste it into your head, and you just get the same content in the way it was in the book. And if you can replicate it on a piece of paper, learning has happened. And this has been the model that has informed a lot of our education, our learning for a very long time. So we need to change our perspectives. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You see that horse? Right. Now, if I do this, the horse changes into a frog. Do you see that? So, poor little horse, you look at it one way, it changes direction, it becomes a frog. So the slightest change, a horse becomes a frog or a frog becomes a horse. Can we do the same with education? If we change our perspective, can we change a system of using technology that's not working, tilt our head, and from a frog it's a horse, and it's galloping away into the sunset? Is that possible? Well, I believe it is. That's our students and our pupils' perspective of life. There's all Maslow's needs, self-actualizing. You can tell them they don't care. Internet, being connected, that is the basic need that underlies everything. The rest is just details. That's their perspective. Unfortunately, our perspective is sit there, be quiet, I'll bore you, and you'll have pills like Ritalin if you can't sit still. And so we're two worlds apart. I want to talk you clever, and they just want to be on the internet and play. And we have different perspectives. And I'm not saying one or the other is actually right, but that's where we come. That's what we sit with. That's the problem we have in classes. That's why the guys are falling asleep. They can't concentrate. That's the reality of where we're at. Now, this is just a little image. I'm going to show you literally a 40-second clip from Ken Robinson's talk. Now, if you've never seen it, you want to go and find Ken Robinson on TED. This is probably one of the most amazing talks you'll ever watch, Changing Paradigms. And I'm only really showing you a minute, and it's about 16 minutes long. But he challenges what we're doing in education, and it's really interesting. So here's just a short clip of what I wanted to pull out of it for this. So it's Changing Paradigms.
I believe we have a system of education that is modeled on the interests of industrialism and in the image of it. I'll give you a couple of examples. Schools are still pretty much organized on factory lines, so ringing bells, separate facilities, specialized into separate subjects. We still educate children by batches. We put them through the system by age group. Why do we do that? Why is there this assumption that the most important thing kids have in common is how old they are? It's like the most important thing about them is their date of manufacture. You know what I mean? Well, I know kids who are much better than other kids at the same age in different disciplines, or at different times of the day, or better in smaller groups than in large groups, or sometimes they want to be on their own. If you're interested in the model of learning, you don't start from this production line mentality. It's essentially about conformity, and increasingly it's about that as you look at the growth of standardized testing and standardized curricula. And it's about standardization. I believe we've got to go in the exact opposite direction. That's what I mean about changing the paradigm.
Right, so he talks about a paradigm that most schools are built on around the world. And it's this industrial paradigm. Everything is very controlled. It's all good. Bells ring. They come through in the batches. Everything it's split into subjects. It's boxes. It's controlled, etc. That is a paradigm that's very difficult to change. Okay, and most teachers will actually say, yeah, but how do we change it? Well, I'm going to suggest that there are ways of changing it using technology, but we need to address a few things first before we can actually hope to change it. And before we look at that, I want to suggest that this single invention had the biggest impact on how we teach. One single invention. That thing. What is that? That is the printing press, and the history teachers invented by Gutenberg. Okay, I don't know the date. Anyone know? 1600s or something. Somewhere there. So Gutenberg invented the printing press and changed forever how we would educate and how our students would learn. You see, prior to that, learning ascension, if you had to give a term to it, and you think back to when you did your HDE or your teaching degree or whatever, there was a way of learning called Socratic dialogue. People would sit around in a circle, and some guru guy would be there, and they'd have discussion, you'd debate, you'd argue, you'd fight, you'd listen to him. It was about groups in discussion. Gutenberg invented printing, and what happened? Knowledge could be stored, and knowledge was now stored in books. And from that day on, learning changed. It went from the book, through the teacher, to that person, and hopefully back down to a piece of paper again. And so it became content-based. It moved from conversation to content. And it's been like that for hundreds of years. However, we have now seen another huge innovation. And the next huge innovation was computers and iPads and all of these things, but more than that, the internet, which gave us connectivity. And I believe this is returning us to what I've called here Socratic 2.0, that we have the opportunity, I'm not saying it's the only way, we have the opportunity to have a new form of pedagogy, which involves dialogue, discussion, debate, sitting around a virtual circle and talking about things. And so the point is, if we try and use technology to simply do that, we really aren't using it in the way it really has its power. And that's what I was saying earlier. The copy-paste is saying I'm going to take what's in the textbook and I'm going to put it on the screen. Slides is using technology in the old way. But can we use technology to engage in conversation and all sorts of interesting things? And how do we do that?